Like I said, you know, the one for the Suicide Squad, right? Like, you know how like everybody knows what fucking what's her face, you know, what's her face? Mrs. Freeze or whatever. Everybody knows what what they did to Mrs. Freeze, right? From the Suicide Squad. They made her into this, whatever the fuck this is, to be honest. Wherever the fuck this is probably the worst Mrs. Freeze I've ever seen in my entire life, to be honest. Um, like, look, you know, this one is good, right? This version of Mrs. Freeze is awesome, right? Let's say if they're super adamant, right, with the studio, so they want to make their own version of Mrs. Freeze, right? You want to know what I actually thought of personally for Mrs. Freeze? Like something similar to this. Basically, I would probably make like a Mrs. Freeze character that's literally like this or so, and that's sort of like kind of like in the same sphere, you know? So, because you know how like ice is usually like, because it's supposed to be like a different dimension of Mrs. Freeze, right? So, honestly, I didn't remember her till I saw this new one from the game. Yeah, but like honestly, I would probably make her character design somewhere around this. Like 100% I would make like more of an admiral like kind of type of character, you know. Hello, hello. Thank you for the follower. So welcome. Sometimes anime having the same type of character but more human is refreshing. I would this is how I would make Mrs. Freeze or so. She would be more of an elegant uh sexy commanding type character, to be honest, for Mrs. Freeze. If they're like super adamant or so to make their own version of Mrs. Freeze, right? You know, they want to make their own version of it. I'll be like, okay, if we're gonna make our own version of it, right, we're gonna do something like this, you know. Instead of her shooting with a gun or something, she'd be using a rapier, of course. You know, that'd be the iconic weapon for her to use instead of like her weird giant battle axe that she has or so in the game. I think a rapier would be kind of nice because it's like elegancy, you know. Like I'd be like when it comes to a character design or so specifically, right? When I'm like doing it for stories, right? I'm specifically carefully choosing a weapon that fits the character, and there has to be a reason why the weapon fits for the character. Like, can I see this character using this weapon? What's the reason? Because of this and this and this, and this kind of reflects her abilities, her elements, the way how she is, her mannerism, and everything like that. That's how I look at things personally when it comes to like, you know, when a character holds a weapon and stuff like that, you know. But that's just me, okay? Maybe because I'm more creative. I just have more of such a creative mind compared to, you know, I'd be like, oh, this character can just run, you know, this weapon or something. Like, why? I don't know, you know, no reason, you know. But one of the cuz this is cuz you want to know something? This is Mrs. Freeze's ultimate. Let me see. Do you guys want to know? You guys want to know what her ultimate is? Let me see. Um,
Suicide Squad season has been out for a few days now.
that that is her ultimate. I think if I remember correctly, that thing that she just did in the beginning of the video, that's the ultimate right there.
The new Suicide Squad season
I would have done something like this with the ultimate chat. I'm gonna be honest with you. Something like this would have been so cool. Now, like, imagine this being like a giant ice, like either a ice lance or a sword or something that she creates, you know, from the sky or so, you know. Like, I was thinking like something like this. Let me see if I can pop this up real quick. Like this is what I would have done here. Let me do a quick little like quick little drawing or so for you guys. So this is what I would have done with Mrs. Freeze, right? So we're just gonna grab a picture of Ez death real quick, okay? You yes. So let's grab Miss Ez death real quick, right? Because, like, for me, right, when I see ice characters, right, one of the other characters that also inspires me what ice is mostly, because ice kind of mostly is mostly relative to elegancy, beauty, and stuff like that, right? The other reason is from this character too. You know how, like, she's so beautiful, she's so elegant and everything like that, the way how she is, right, as an ice character, which this is probably like one of the best ways to, like, kind of like one of the best ways to do a character personally, right? I think it's pretty cool, um I think it fits pretty well when it comes to, like, ice characters, right? And there's also the other part of ice too that doesn't really get shown as much or so, right? Which is more the savagery of it, Hmm. So this is what I'm thinking, right? Let's grab Miss S Death real quick. Grab her, drop her in here. Oh, no, that's not what I want to do. Drop her in here, right? So the one thing I want to do, right? Let me see. Let's see if we can get, let's see. Can we get, like, a bunch of enemies showing up or something, like kind of like somewhere? Is there an image or so where there's, like, a bunch of enemies, like, kind of like on the ground or something like that? Let me see. Is there something like that? Can we get something like that here? Okay. So right. So what I'm thinking, right, chat? Just pretend those are enemies on the ground, okay? Kind of work with me a little bit, right? So, right. So what I'm thinking, right? As I grab the paintbrush real quick. So let's pretend. So let's pretend that this is Mrs. Freeze, right? We're just gonna pretend that this is kind of like the character I designed for Mrs. Freeze, right? What I'm deciding to do, right? Which would grab the pretend that like she's doing her ultimate, right? So, like, what I was thinking, either she, like, jumps up into the air, right? She kind of has, like, this specific pose or so. Kind of a shitty brush for it. So we do this. Do a quick little thing. Like, she does this or so, right? She does like this. Like, this is the point of camera view right here, right? And then she's up in the air, right? Like, she's up in the air specifically, right? So she'll go up in the air, right? And then I was thinking or so is that she, like, she'll either have, what I'm thinking or so, either have this hand or so specifically in the air or so, right? And then she'll have her rapier or so, right here specifically, right? And then she'll form the fucking, the big giant fucking sword or so, right? That comes out of the sky, right? She'll basically start forming either a sword, like an ice sword or something like that here, right? Specifically, or some kind of spear, maybe some kind of ice spear or something, right? Make it look, I would just make it very cinematic and really nice or so, right? Like, to make the ultimate look really good or so. And then she sends the sword down this way, right? Towards the enemies that are right here, right? She'll hit it here specifically, right? And she'll slam dunk or so, right? And then explodes, and explodes all of this shit here, just kind of explodes, explodes all of this and everything, right? And then and then also on top of that, right? Once this sword, this specific sword hits impact onto here and explodes and everything, right? What I was thinking specifically, right? This whole entire floor here, right? Just gets golfed up into snow and everything like that. And then you and your teammates, because remember, at the end of the day, right? This is a team, like, this is more of a team oriented game and everything, right? So this whole entire area specifically, right? Like here, and here and everything, or here, specifically here too. Like all of this surface and everything like that becomes all icy and everything. And you gain like increased movement speed and like all this other stuff and whatnot, right? All of this you just gain increased movement speed for you and your teammates. So you're just kind of like moving around and shit more faster and everything, It just kind of makes like a big AoE field of ice, It just kind of like snows and everything kind of explodes, Just kind of like, ooh, it's like snowing or so, It's like snowing. It's like a winter wonderland or so, right? Kind of like does something like that specifically, right? It's just kind of snowing. It's kind of snowing or so, and then you got like ice everywhere. It kind of like makes an AoE ice area for you and your teammates and everything like that. And then if it's possible, right? Would be really cool if I can combo. It is probably possible or so. It just takes a little bit more work or so. But I would combo with this or so, right? With this, like, all of this or so, right? You get like an increased buff or so or something like that. Either you get an increased a buff for a passive, or she can combine this or so with her other kits that she has specifically, whatever other kit that she has, whatever I decide to choose for her, you can combo with this, combo with all of this in here. So that's basically is what I would do specifically with this, with Mrs. Freeze or so, with her with basically her entire, her entire shit. I basically would scrap the character, right? I would scrap the character and I would just literally put make just redesign her completely, from the ground up again. And then that's pretty much it. So that's basically it. So I don't know what you guys think about that specifically, but that's basically what I would choose for her to be, Yeah, cuz like remember, right? They're using like the main key, right? The main key that they're using is these are alter dimension, you know. These are alter dimension heroes. So these are different kinds of heroes that are, that are not from, they're not from this world or so. So if they're using different dimensions of, of the villains or so, then, if they're super adamant on making their own version, right? Their own version of an alter anti-hero, then I would prefer to go, this specific style of Miss as Death, like just literally base it off of this, base it off of also try to get some inspiration from Miss Weiss Shini or so. Honestly, like you have so much resources to like make it really good or so. To make this character really pop the fuck off. And then on top of that, right, with the Joker one, right, from Joker from the Suicide Squad. I'm gonna be honest with you. With this version of him, I would completely scrap him. I'm gonna be honest with you. This version of him, I would just completely scrap him. He is more interesting than the actual like the normal you know than this Joker that they created, right? Compared to between two of these, right? We all know this for a fact, right? That the Suicide Squad version of Joker is probably the worst Joker design I've ever seen in my entire life, and I'm not even a character design person. This here, this specifically here, this guy is the worst Joker. This is the worst Joker that has been designed. I'm gonna be honest with you. Compared to this, with with this guy specifically, the way how this guy looks and everything, there's definitely a huge like night and difference with there's a big huge difference with this because you can make some really creative like gameplay stuff with him, you know. So for me specifically, right? This I'd scrap this and try to get this guy in the game, you know? I would literally scrap this design completely off the internet and try to get this design instead in the joke for the Kill the Justice League, because you want to know something, right? They're playing with altered dimensions of anti-heroes, right? So why not lean towards, these other versions of Joker, or or Mr. Freeze, or fucking whatever other villain that's out there, right? Grab the altered version of these characters. And you know how and you guys know, right? The one from the let me see. Let me go back real quick. So everybody knows this specific fight with the Batman, this one right here, was the biggest letdown so far in this game. I can't even save it because it's a WebP file. What a fucking annoying thing, to be honest. What an actual annoying thing. I can't even save the file, chat. I can't even save the file. So everybody knows specifically, right, that this was probably this is probably like the worst way or so to handle him, right? For the Batman, at least himself. So you know what I decided to do, right? So for the fight itself, right? So we're gonna get rid of this guy because we don't need this guy, right? Bring him over here. So this is what I decided to choose, what I want the players to do, right? So your squad, right? Number one, your squad, it comes in there, right? And then you got, what's her name? Amanda Hollers or whatever her name is. Whatever the fuck her name is, right? I forgot her name, right? So she tells you that you need to go to a different dimension to capture this guy. Amanda Waller? Okay. So they want you to capture, the Joker, the Batman Who Laughs, right? But then she explains to you specifically that, he's almost impossible to get, right? And then like the characters, right? The Suicide Squad people, right? They're saying like, how the fuck are you supposed to capture it? Number one plan, capture the Batman Who Laughs, right? So that's number one. This is your objective or so, to capture the Batman Who Laughs, right? Amanda Walter talks to you about it specifically, debriefs you the moment, right? But as the player, right, you have to solve the way how to get it, while Amanda, right? Amanda gives you all the tools, all of the tools necessary to capture him. Okay? So as you as the player, right? You as the player who has to solve this, you have to capture this guy. Amanda Walder, as the video game itself, the game will give you the tools for you to capture him, but you only have 3 tries. So there's 3 different missions. You only got 3 tries in order to capture the Batman Who Laughs, okay? Because he's going to help you out to capture, to capture Batman. Right? Or not really capture, but to defeat Batman. So your whole point is to capture him, right? Amanda Waller gives you the things, right, to capture him. You only have 3 tries, which is 3 different missions, right? It's not going to be the same type of mission, right? All 3 missions are going to be structured differently or so to capture the Batman Who Laughs. And it's going to be in his dimension, right? His version of the world, right? And you as the player, right, it's not going to hold your hand or anything like that. You have to solve it the way how it is. So the AI is going to be really programmed really well or so for this, right, to always try to counter your, as you as the players, your traps and everything in order for you to capture him, but you only get like 3 tries. You can capture him on the first try, but it's really hard. It's pretty difficult to pull it off, but you can do it though. It's not impossible. It's just pretty difficult. That's it. And that's basically is what I do, right? Then once you capture him, then Amanda finds a way or so, right? Amanda specifically finds a way or so to have, Mr. Batman Who Laughs or so, right? To either because like she in this version of Amanda Waller's, right, she's a little bit more kind of demanding and kind of like cutthroat and everything like that, right? She'll find a way to control him, right? Because the Batman Who Laughs is not an easy character to control, and this would kind of paint her so as being like a kind of very antagonist type of way of Amanda Waller. So she'll find a way to control this guy, you know. Yeah, but she's more cutthroat in the Suicide Squad one. She was always demanding, in my opinion, but let's be honest here, she's gonna be more evil or so to control this guy here. So that's basically the character. I would get rid of the Joker that we have or so, which is this version, and replace it with this. Make a mission or so, like make a structural mission or so, specifically with 3 missions here. 3 tries, which is missions. This would be 3 missions here, right? This would be, this would give off only 3 missions you can get them. And then if you fail all 3 missions, unfortunately, you have to go fight Batman, right? If you miss capturing him 5 times or so, right? I'm not 5 times, but 3 times or so, you have to, you have to defeat Batman himself. But it's going to be a lot difficult to defeat Batman because you don't have this guy. Because this guy is supposed to, the Batman Who Laughs, right, is supposed to fight Batman himself in your guys' dimension, right? The one that Brainiac is taking control of, You're supposed to use him to fight Batman, to basically level the playing field. Because for the love of Pete's sakes, right, these are superheroes. Like the villains who are fighting the superheroes, they're superheroes. They're not like regular people who just get shot down and then, they're dead. These are like superheroes who know what the fuck they're doing. They're not stupid or anything like that. But for some apparent reason in the video game, they made them stupid for some apparent reason. So if you miss trying to get the Batman Who Laughs 3 times and everything like that, right? It makes this specific fight here, 10 times more difficult than it needs to be. Like you can still defeat him, but it's difficult. So. And then Amanda Walters, right, will talk shit to you, be like, "This is what you get for not fucking, getting the Batman Who Laughs. You guys are so useless." Basically, she's just like kind of like shit talking to you, because you failed 3 times, you know, to get this guy, and every time you fail or so on capturing him specifically, he'll make fun of you. He'll make fun of you every single time, that you didn't bother capturing him. Just kind of throw a little bit of a little bit of insult, to your injury, that you failed, as a player. And that's basically pretty much it. I think it would bring a little bit of different, diverse in the gameplay besides, you shooting a boss or you doing something, to a boss or something. Like you have to do a capturing thing for this guy. But you know, that's just this is just my way how I would make the Suicide Squad kill the Justice League. Like you're going to kill the Justice League. Okay. How are we going to defeat Batman? How are we going to defeat Superman? How are we going to defeat the Green Lantern? There's different I would have to like look at shit and consult with like comic book people, people who are like in the comic book scenes. I'd be like, okay, what are their weaknesses? How did they get defeated? And all this other shit. And I would find a way how to implement those kinds of ways or so into like, is there someone who can stand toe to toe to Superman? Is there someone who can stand toe to toe to fucking the Flash? Is there someone who can stand toe to toe to fucking the Green Lantern? Like basically trying to find a way to level the playing field while you're playing the Suicide Squad members. Because at the end of the day, right, they're superheroes. Okay, this is one of the reasons why, right? And also the most recent hero that they released or so, right, for the Suicide Squad, it's probably not the greatest superhero. You know who I would have chose? I think this would have been a cool person. Uh, I would have chosen Lobo, to be honest, to choose for you know, in my personal opinion. I think Lobo would have been a pretty cool choice for the Justice League or so, kill the Justice League. I would have chosen Lobo to be the third character for this one at least, right? But that's just me, right? Like at the end of the day, right? This is just my ideas. It could be, depending if there's no other dimension version of Lobo or something. But imagine just having him or so just coming into the game or so, trying to stand toe to toe with the other villains. Well, not with other villains, but working with the other villains. This would have been the third DLC character that I would have released or so, if they want to make DLC characters, right? For me specifically, when it comes to this one or so, right? Let me see. With the Batman Who Laughs, right? You want to know something? For me personally, I would not make this character as a DLC. I would make this character be unlockable or so in the main game. When you basically, if you manage to capture him, right, from your 3 tries and 3 attempts and everything, right? From this here, from your 3 tries and everything, you unlock him as a playable character, for, you know, as for the rest of the game afterwards, once you do the mission and everything. He would be unlockable. He wouldn't be a DLC for me if I made the game or so. I would make him to be an unlockable character. And I would choose a different character to be the first DLC character. Because I think this would have been so cool and a cool nod off or so, right? Because at the end of the day, right, specifically, I would choose like different versions of enemies, right, in the main story campaign to be unlockable, and then just add Mrs. Freeze as a DLC, Lobo as a DLC. I would have to see who would I would want to use or so for the first character for the DLC, because I'm not really I don't really know too much about, superhero stuff, but this is what I would choose. This is how I would construct the game, as a team, as like a team basic, basic of like team coordination and everything like that, right? So I think this would be pretty cool. I don't know what he does specifically, right? For Mister the Batman Who Laughs and everything, right? I don't know his move sets or anything like that, but this is basically the floor plan of how I would do, how I would specifically do this game for the Justice League. And that's basically it. This is how I would do it. This is how I make, I don't know, I guess this is how you say how I construct, stories and video games. So I don't know what you guys think. I really don't know. I really don't know what you guys think, so you guys tell me. But yeah. We just watched the VOD or so specifically on it. And I wanted to add a little bit more to it. So for the Lobo part, right? I just thought of it just now, right now, because I want to add a little bit more to it, right? If if I would have made Lobo, right, as a DLC character number 3, right? He would be number 3. 100% this guy would be number 3, okay? I'll be honest with you. I think he would be pretty cool to have him as a level 3. Um I did say this specifically in chat or so. What happens, cuz like I know he rides a motorcycle, right? And he has chains. I'd be the unpaid intern slaving in the draft rooms. What? That's the corporal spirit you're hired. And he has chains, right? He has a chain, he does have a chain thing. What happens? What happens if we do like I know it makes no sense, right? I know this makes like no sense, but I want to do something like fun for the players. What would happen if we cuz he rides on a motorcycle, what happens if we do something with like his chain, like he throws it in the ground or so, right? And like he spins around like in a circle or so, right? Like he spins in a circle, like kind of like sucking in the enemies and stuff like that, right? And the camera pans out at the top point of view and you see the animation pulling off and everything, right? And he sucks in the enemies, right? As an AoE, like kind of sucking enemies towards in. And he does damage or so to the enemies, but would be pretty cool. Makes no sense, but I just want to do it for funsies because if I was constructing a video game, I want to make it fun. I want to make it fun for the people. I would try to see if I could make him like throw his motorcycle at the enemies, right? Throw the motorcycle at the enemies, and then he fucking shoots it with his gun, and then blows up the motorcycle and kills the enemies, in a grab, in a very gravor, explosive for him. And I think it would be pretty cool. It makes no sense. I understand. It makes no sense because, you know, he does love his motorcycle and everything like that. Because I grew up with the old version of Lobo from the DC, the original one, anyways. Uh, if he's here. Let me see. DC. Because I only know about the original Lobo design, and I know that he's like, he loves his motorcycle and everything like that, right? And it would be pretty cool if he had, like, you know, or like maybe with like one of his abilities. This Lobo is the one that I grew up with. This one right here, the 1996 version of Lobo. That's the version I know of Lobo. Um, it would be cool to incorporate like his chain or so where he can like grab an enemy and pulls him towards himself, and then he pulls the enemy towards him like kind of like a scorpion kind of type of way, right? But it doesn't pierce through the enemy. He wraps it around him, pulls him towards himself, right? And then while he's pulling on the enemy or so, you know, he pops out his shotgun, you know, like he's doing the pulling motion. He does the motion that it pulls him down, right? He pops out his shotgun because I think he uses a shotgun, right? Am I wrong, or does he use a different? I don't really know what weapon he uses because it's been quite a while since I remember Lobo, and the enemy comes flying towards him, right? Shotgun goes straight to his mouth, boom, blows his head or so, you know, for the enemy, anyways. And it would be a pretty cool little cinematic or so to show it, and I think it would be pretty enjoyable to see it every so often, you know? And it could be, I could probably make it as like maybe some kind of execution move or so when he's like, when the enemy's like low on health or so, and you can do that. You would need a crazy plot to get Lobo in the Suicide Squad. He's crazy strong character, but man is a bounty hunter, so Amanda Waller could hire him. Could, yeah, that could actually work, you know? Like I said, right, I would do something like that with the ability. Either if the enemy is low health, you can execute him when you can, if you grab the enemy or so with one of the skills, pull the enemy, and then you can execute him with that special move or so with the, I don't know what gun he uses because I don't really remember off the top of my head. That's how you know I'm not really a DC person. But you shoot him, and then you do this, and then after that, you know, you kind of do some really cool stuff with it. Like I said, right, these are just my ideas. These are like kind of like, you know, if I was the lead producer for the Suicide Squad, this is basically how I would do it, you know? At the end of the day, right, this would be pretty cool, you know? Personally, I think this would be a pretty cool thing, personally. I don't know what you guys think, right? But that's what I would do. I don't know, because I'm, like I said, I'm not a DC, like, I'm not a DC expert. I'm not a DC fangirl either. So I don't really know too much about the DC universe, but like the super basic information about the DC stuff. And this is basically it. That's basically my idea of what I would do with the Suicide Squad. Lobo would be DLC number 3. Our own version of Mrs. Freeze for number 2. Number 1, I would have to see who I would choose as a villain or so. I probably would choose a well-known villain, you know? Because I want to get, like, at least, like, pretty recognizable, well-known villains to be playable as DLC, you know? And that's pretty much, frankly, it. That's how I would do it. You know, I would understand, and plus also I would make custom, like different new 3D model guns or so for Lobo and Lobo only, because I know Lobo uses different weapons, you know, but they all use the same, you know, they all use the same fucking weapons and everything, but I would make different like new 3D model weapons or so for Lobo and all of this other stuff, you know. This is basically like my creative mind works or so for, you know, the Suicide Squad. Kill the Justice League, of course. But yeah, that's it. You know, I hope you guys enjoyed my little, you know, my little idea or so. If I was the lead producer for the Suicide Squad, you know, kill the Justice League, this is what I would do. Now, like I said, you guys can comment, like, subscribe. You guys can let me know what you guys specifically think. For those people who are DC fans, you guys can let me know down in the comment sections of what you guys think about this. I always read the comment sections about this, you know. It was good even though I just came here. Don't worry about it. You'll see the VOD or so on my YouTube channel. You'll take a look at it or so. But yeah, like I said, you know, if you guys think this is a cool idea, I would probably put like different unlockable characters in the main base game, right? And then I would make, you know, DLC characters afterwards, you know? So, and then also on top of that, with the cosmetic stuff, if they wanted to sell cosmetics, I'd rather do it from the comic books and try to find a way to get them implemented into the game, you know? Ask permission to get some of the IPs for some of the costumes or so. You know, cuz we're doing a DC game. So I want to, me personally, as much as someone who doesn't know about DC, I want to give it the justice that it really needs, you know? Like I would give it the respect of the source material and the respect to DC Comics, DC shows, and the DC community, an actual good, you know, superhero game or anti-hero / superhero game, you know? And that's basically is what I would do. This is just me, you know, kind of, I guess you can say creative venting or so about the situation, about how Suicide Squad has been handled. And yeah, that's it. That's, you know, that's the end of the video. Like I said, you can tell me what you guys think about it. You know, I know a lot of people are probably not going to watch this video, but for those who actually did watch the video to the end or so, thank you for listening to my, you know, my little rant about how I would do, you know, how I would make the Suicide, you know, producer for the Suicide game, you know. Even though, like, I understand now today's age or so, like, it's all about profit and everything like that. But for me, if I ever became a lead producer for a studio, or my own studio anyways, I'd rather be a lead producer of my own studio personally. These are basically some ideas of what kind of games that I would make for my fan base and my audience and my community on YouTube. So be prepared in the future when I own my own game studio. We are going to make games, you know, as good as this, you know. So if you ever see something like this get implemented into some kind of game, I'm the one, you know, who, you know, I'm the one who came up with it, and my studio helped me, my beautiful studio that I'll have in the future helped me created it. So, but yeah, that's pretty much about it. And that's the end of the video. And peace.